I'm Lisa Negri, the founder and visionary behind Summer Home Garden. It's a little pocket park garden in a very urban dense neighborhood that I started about 4 years ago now. I founded my own environmental engineering company about 25 years ago and had to sell it after I got very, very sick. And so I had nothing to do. After about 5 years of staying home and doing nothing, I thought, I have to get out. I've got to get out into the world again. And so I decided to volunteer at the Denver Botanic Gardens. I have your minimum gardening background, not really a big one, but I decided I would be a gardener. And I took the class, and then I was randomly placed with this brilliant horticulturist by the name of Kevin Philip Williams. And you couldn't find two people that are more unalike in this entire world. I'm an engineer, linear, everything has to add up. I like black and white, and I get placed with Kevin, whose brain, and he's an artist, and it explodes and sees things that I don't even see. In 2019, after about 3 years of working with Kevin, the gentleman who lived next to me passed away. And I live in a very urban, dense environment that's turning over from the original brick bungalows into these gigantic 3- and 4-story mansions, black and white farmhouses. And I knew I did not want that. I would go crazy without my sunlight. And so in 3 days after his death, I had bought the property. And I thought, well, I'll rent it. And then I finally got inside. I bought it sight unseen, and it was uninhabitable. I was going to have to tear it down. Then what? And then I thought, I'll build a garden. I was going to build this wonderful garden for me, maybe roses and some nice, hardscape in there. And I didn't like that idea either. Felt a bit too entitled. So one day I was working with Kevin at the Botanic Gardens in what is called the step garden. These are nativistic gardens, naturalistic gardens, and I love the aesthetic. And I turned to him and said, Kevin, build me a garden. And he just went, oh, I would love to do that. And we started to have discussions about what was this garden going to be and how were we going to do it. That took us weeks. He asked me to write down my vision of this garden. And I thought, wow, what do I want? So I came up with 4 things. I want this garden to be very educational about these low water, low maintenance xeric plants. People are used to seeing 1 or 2 species, and I wanted to introduce them to the plants that I'd been introduced to at the Botanic Gardens. Number 2, I didn't want to use any soil amendments, pesticides, herbicides, nothing. I just wanted to use the local soil because it's really bad, and prove to them that we could put a big garden in, and they could too. That turned out to be a tiny bit of a problem in that once they tore the house down, there was a big hole. And I didn't have enough soil. And I thought, where am I going to get local soil? And I turned around, and going up and down the street are dump trucks constantly because of this construction I'm living in. So I started chasing dump trucks down the street. And I'd climb up and I'd look, and if it was clean soil, I'd say, oh, I've got a deal for you. Pull around the block, come down the alley and dump. Word got out. And within 4 or 5 hours, I had 150 cubic yards of soil from my neighborhood. Third, I want these plants to be mostly commercially available. Because again, I'm trying to get people to start using these plants in their landscape and introducing. It's the educational part. And lastly, it had to be free and open to the public. So people can come anytime during the day through the entire growing season. Those were Kevin's marching orders, and off he went. And he came back with a design. I couldn't comprehend it. It was way too complex for me. It was brilliant. His whole thing is to try and create a garden that looks natural, that like Mother Nature did it. We didn't do it, but you don't do that easily. So he did that. We put the hardscape in, got all the landscaping done, the fences, fountains, crevice gardens, pathways. We put all of that in, and then Kevin ordered the plants. 4,000 plants, 45 species. And then COVID hit. And into that bleak, horrible time, a little bit of hope came. 4,000 baby plants in May of that year. I was able to round up enough volunteers. In 2 days, we put in 4,000 baby plants. And next, we had to water 4,000 plants. Summer Home does not have a sprinkler system. I want to get it to the point where it doesn't need any supplemental water. So here's my volunteers who I adore with little spray hoses, individually hand watering 4,000 plants daily, sometimes twice a day because it was hot. And they were thriving. They were just doing great. I never knew that it would make it. I didn't have any idea. No one came in the garden. I think people were very suspicious of what I was doing, even though there were signs out, open, come in, but I never saw anyone in there. And we just took care of these plants to the best of our ability. And 2021 dawned, and man, that garden had spent the winter just putting good roots down and really taking off, and it just looked remarkable. And people started to show up. I don't know, maybe 5 people a week, and I would get so excited. Since I lived next door, I would run out and give them the gospel according to me of these plants, make them touch them and smell them and taste them and use all of their senses and explain why this garden was so important. But it still really didn't take off. People were very confused. They really didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. And neither did I. I was watching it just like everyone else was watching it unfold according to Kevin's plan. And that was pretty cool. That was a cool time. But 21, it really just sat there and grew. So 2022, it dawns. And for some reason, it starts to take off. And people start to say, well, have you been to the secret garden in the neighborhood? It was growing great. People were showing up. People were happy. I could hear people out there all the time. I was getting like 100 people a month in 2022. So that was pretty cool. And started to see that the community acceptance of this was coming. And it became a gathering place. It also became something that they were very protective of. And I didn't realize that garden would need all that protection and love. And they took ownership. I'd be out walking my dogs and they'd say, oh, you're the garden lady. We've been there and we've made sure that, and I thought, wow, people are seeing it. There was a bunch of books and articles that were written about it. So the crowds really, really started to increase. And of course the garden that's its second full growing year, and it's really starting to put on a show. Kevin had designed it with a rolling bloom. It starts blooming in February and it ends when the freeze hits, whenever that is, in November. And people were coming back multiple times because they'd walk by and go, well, it looks totally different. And I'd say, yes, it does, because new things are blooming. I also started to notice that at 3:15 in the afternoon is when all the schools get out in my neighborhood. And I knew it. I didn't have to have a watch on. I could hear children screaming out there. And they would be playing hide and seek and running up and down the pathways and running through the garden. It doesn't matter to me. It's designed to take that kind of abuse, or let's just say use, of a child. And they would have so much fun playing in the fountains and water. And so it just became kind of like I said, started getting international fame and national fame. I still don't really know exactly why I did it. I think my why changes as the garden changes. 2023, this garden, it was the year of magic. I have to call it that. So many magical things happened. So many great things happened in 23. Our involvement out there got less and less. We do one cutback a year, and then it's not much more. We are letting Mother Nature do its thing. And because you're starting to see interactions in plants and the way things are growing. It's just remarkable to watch how things move. But a lot of magical, it was, in 23, I was befriended by a hummingbird, which I know sounds weird, but every time I went out to the garden, I would notice a hummingbird, and he was right there, right by my hand, right by my head. And I thought I was losing my mind. And then when I was giving tours, there he would be. And people would say, hey, there's a hummingbird right over your left shoulder. And I'd say, oh, yeah, that's Mac. Don't worry. He'll just hang with us while we're out here. I loved him. I would come out every morning to fill the fountains, and I just do a general kind of walk around, and he would be there. We'd talk. We solved all the world's problems, him and I. And then he left in October, but I'm very happy to say he came back in 2024. He's back here right now. I also had the mystery of the moving buffalo in 23. One day I walked out and there was a buffalo toy, a plastic buffalo in the bottom of one of the fountains. So I fished it out, set it on the side of the fountain, and thought, some little kids, they'll come by, they'll pick it up. Next day I came out and it had moved, and it was on a bench. And day after day, it moved. It would be in a flower. It would be in a different fountain. It moved. To this day, I have no idea how that buffalo moved. Not a clue how it moved. But it was always fun. Every morning I came out and I'd be, where's the buffalo today? So I still have the buffalo, and he's still out there, and he's still moving. So I don't know. Maybe there's some fairies out there. Or I realized this year that one of the primary reasons why I'm doing this is that we need to do something about climate change. And each of us can do something small about climate change. Summer home sequesters an enormous amount of carbon. It's very low water, very low maintenance as compared to all the lawns that we put in. The plants are native, and they draw in pollinator populations that are unbelievable. We have 800 species of solitary bees in Colorado. On a good day, I can count 50 that are in summer home. They nest in the ground, so we need the open ground, and they nest all over summer home. We also provide them with some habitat to nest in. I just believe that if we can take these gardens and take these plants, and even if it's small gardens, 5 square feet, 10 square feet, but they're only blocks apart through a city, the pollinators will find them. They'll get there. And they will have a migration pathway through a high density, horrible environment to get through. And we can create an ecosystem. It will help with climate change.